Hello, this is the tradesight Stock and Futures Economic Roadmap and Index Preview for the week beginning Monday, February 25th, 2013, ending on Friday, March 1st. Here's a look at the S&P daily chart. We've been watching this as we do every week. Some interesting action this week. We got to remember it was a short week, 4 days only, with the Monday bank holiday for President's Day. So Tuesday was up a little bit. Wednesday we had the great trading day with the drop. Thursday we continued to try to drop. It ended up really in pretty narrow range. The futures were horribly set up. I'll show you what that looked like in a bit. Friday got a little bit of a bounce. Now, here's what's interesting about this. First of all, just from the daily chart perspective, we'd still like to get the 12 and the 13 counts for that seeker sell signal. And this sets it up for that to happen real easily without actually making new highs. Because remember that the seeker will take the close of the current day, look back 2 bars, and need to be above that high. Well, obviously today's close right here at 15.1560. Looking back 2 days, you're not above the high of that bar. However, any move up at all for the close, even a point, even not even that for Monday, would mean that we are above the close from Thursday. So that would give us the 12, and then any move above that would give us the 13. So we are set up here for the ultimate 13 sell signal. What's really interesting about this, though, is that they were able to make this happen without breaking what was going on in the weekly chart. And let me show you again. We looked at this last weekend. The weekly chart has a 13 sell signal. There's a pink risk line here. If you close above that risk line, it actually, especially only a couple weeks into the line, the signal, it actually usually propels the market significantly higher. And we did breach it intra-week this week, but we did not get a close above it. They pushed it back down. So what this has done now is it makes it possible for us to get the 12 and the 13 on the daily without really breaking the highs and breaking that risk line and closing above it on the weekly. And again, got 5 days next week for the weekly anyway. So in theory, we could go up again intra-week and get above that line and then come back down. And remember, these 13 sell signals on the weekly, they're rare. I mean, you go back 2 years before you see one on the S&P. So we've got to pay attention to this, and if you get a daily and a weekly both with the 13, hard to believe we're not going to roll over. So that's what that looks like. Now let's take a look at it. NDX on the weekly, got a head and shoulders formation forming here. We have our 8 bars up on the setup phase, not on the countdown phase of the seeker tool. We'd have to get a little bit higher here to get that 9th bars next week. But again, the real problem isn't whether or not you can top and roll over here without this part. I'd rather get the ultimate signal on the S&P. The real issue is how far are we going to the downside? Are we going all the way back to break this head and shoulders formation, in which case that could get really ugly, or are we just going to come back and retest maybe this 2500, which is fine. It's just a standard pullback. And of course you've got the issue looming here in March of the sequester, the federal sequester, and all the damage that's going to end up doing to the economy. The travel stories are going to be nightmarish. Unfortunately, I'm traveling in the middle of March, so if they don't solve this within 2 weeks of the sequester kicking in, I'm going to be one of those guys at the airport with a 3-hour wait, unfortunately. Here's the daily chart of the NDX, and you'll notice we're still operating. There's the 13 sell signal over here. We're still operating under that risk line. NDX has been very, very flat so far this year. Matter of fact, this is where it opened on January 1st. We're at the exact same price level. January was impossibly flat. I don't think you can find a single month like this in a chart of the index going back years. February we tried to move up a little, but then again, a lot of flat and down. So I would say so far this year, volume's been better. Some of the intraday activity has been better than what we saw last year. But the movement on the NDX in particular, as Apple has sold off and other stocks have maybe come up, has not been all that interesting. Let's take a look at the daily on the SOX. This is the semiconductor index. Again, got an 11 there. And same scenario, could get a 12, 13 very easily next week now that we've done this on the seeker. Now remember, you're not going to be able to get any signals on the Comer without making new highs, but on the daily chart we prefer to use the seeker anyways. And here's the NBI. This is the biotech index. This has really done nothing for a month and a half. I mean, nice. We had a nice cup and handle. We talked about it back in the beginning of February. Came up and exactly hit that 1550, would have been the breakout, and then just sideways drift. You can call that a handle, but it's getting awful long. And obviously, I wouldn't expect this to carry the market if we're going to roll over. So that's where we're at from the indices perspective. Again, maybe Monday, Tuesday, even if it takes to Wednesday to get the 13 sell signal on the daily of the S&P, I think that's going to be meaningful. And then if you close out the back end of next week negative, and why would you? Well, because the sequester starts next Friday. A lot of reasons that market could start to roll over. I'd rather not just drop Monday, Tuesday, but actually get the sell signal on the daily chart. And then really we'd be in good shape for making a lot of money on the short side once that starts to kick in. And of course, here's the one thing you got to remember about all this. This is all technical stuff, and then we will get a pullback. But if they take a week or two and then they solve the sequester problem, obviously the market could head back up fairly quickly following that. Now, let's take a look at economic data that's coming out this week. Put this up here. We've got nothing on Monday here in the U.S. at all. On Tuesday, we've got the NAHB Housing Market Index, not a big number. Wednesday, we've got housing starts and building permits and PPI. Sorry, I'm doing this wrong again. That's funny. I keep resetting it before I come over here. All right, let's do this again. No data Monday, as I said. Tuesday, Case-Shiller 20-City Index, Housing Price Index, New Home Sales, and Consumer Confidence. Okay, Consumer Confidence is a big number, expected at 62. We've got on Wednesday, MBA Mortgage Index, Durable Orders, Pending Home Sales, Crude Oil Inventories. None of those are a big deal. Thursday, Initial and Continuing Jobless Claims. Comes out every week. GDP second look for the fourth quarter, not the first look, so this isn't as important. Chicago PMI is a good number, and natty gas. And then Friday, personal income and spending, PCE prices, the final look at Michigan sentiment for February. ISM index, a big number. Construction spending, auto and truck sales in the afternoon. All of this, there's no Fed announcements, there's no global rate announcements, there's no main GDP, the big one, which is the first one. This is the second one. None of our big three from a Forex perspective, and I know this is about stocks, but still those bigger numbers have an impact on the market. So even though there is a lot of data, I would say the Chicago PMI is important, the ISM index can be important, and consumer confidence on Tuesday is important, but none of these are the bigger numbers that you see every month. So obviously the focal point of the week, I think, there's no options expiration either, there's no Fed meeting. So the focal point of the week is going to be the market's view of the sequester and what that's looking like with the federal government. I think that's going to be the story of the week. And then, yes, there's a lot of economic data. And if any of it misses or beats by a lot, obviously it can do things to the market. But we're going to be watching very carefully to see how the market sets up Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and see if we can get that 13 sell signal on the seeker on the daily chart. Have a great weekend and week. We will be in the lab trading as usual.